am so glad we invited the Chippewas to join us for this holiday meal. Remember, these savages are our guests. We must not be surprised at any of their strange customs. After all, they have not had our advantages, such as fine schools, libraries full of books, shampoo.
How? I am Pocahontas, a Chippewa maiden. We have brought a special gift for this holiday feast.
I am a turkey. Kill me. What a thoughtful gift. Why, you are as civilized as we, except we wear shoes and have last names. Welcome to our table, our new primitive friends.
Thank you, Sarah Miller. You're the most beautiful person I've ever seen. Your hair is the color of the sun. Your skin is like fresh milk. And everyone loves you.
Stop! Sit.
Wait.
What?
We cannot break bread with you.
Huh? Becky, what's going on?
Wednesday! You have taken the land which is rightfully ours. Years from now, my people will be forced to live in mobile homes, on reservations. Your people will wear cardigans and drink highballs. We will sell our bracelets by the roadsides. You will play golf and enjoy hot hors d'oeuvres. My people will have pain and degradation. Your people will have stick shifts. The gods of my tribe have spoken. They have said, do not trust the pilgrims. Especially Sarah Miller.
Gary, she's changing the words.
And for all these reasons, I've decided to scalp you and burn your village to the ground.
As you can see in this funny clip from the movie Addams Family Value, Wednesday reminds the parents watching this and all of us at home that there is another perspective or way of viewing our Thanksgiving holiday. In the West, many of us tend to view history and the experiences through our own perspective and lens. However, Wednesday showed us here that there's another side to look at our common experiences, especially ones in which the West comes out on top. This different perspective focuses on disadvantaged groups, individuals, or cultures that may have been harmed. In a similar fashion, there are many authors that have developed a critical perception to internationalization. These authors' critical perspective serves as a voice for the developing nations. Like the global North or West, these voices have experienced some benefits of internationalization, but many people in developing nations or the global South have experienced problems to internationalization and to a larger degree globalization that seems to be ignored. Our video wants to highlight some of these themes and perspectives that the authors have discussed. There is a wide range of views even within this critical perspective approach. Some authors believe that internationalization is just another form of globalization and that it's closer to Western imperialism, while others believe that we need to just restructure and collaborate with the global South in order to make internationalization better and more effective for our students. For those who are critical of internationalization, they're mostly looking at it similar to globalization because it benefits the North and exacerbates inequality in the South. If you look at globalization, the main face of globalization is trade and economics. And so you see protests in Seattle, Hong Kong, Greece, where they're protesting the economic pressures that result from globalization. Internationalization, which is just kind of another form but in education, right now exasperates academic capitalism that serves the interests of many students in the West and not the students in developing countries. Some examples of academic capitalism are the high cost and study abroad programs, high tuition prices for students in developing countries to come to the West, and increasing number of English classes that are being offered and not that of the native language. For example, if you look at Hong Kong, more classes are being taught in English than they are in Cantonese. All these examples that improve opportunities for students in the West to come study, but not necessarily opportunities for local students to do well. But many people who are critical of internationalization do not think it's a bad idea. They just say it needs to be restructured, that we need to establish a field that brings multicultural education for all, that brings equity and social justice as the underlying goals. Many people believe that international education has the ability to bring equity to higher education, especially if the global north works in collaboration with the global south. This is the real key, rather than focusing on commercial profits and losses in study abroad and exchange programs. Instead, we should look at increasing learning, establishing partnerships, and helping transitioning developing countries move towards democracy. These are all done in collaboration projects with universities from the global north and the global south to benefit both sides. In the end, if done right, internationalization can actually help students and faculty in both countries live and learn from each other, can result in new research ideas, and can improve the quality of education.
Some other critical perspectives being offered surrounding the impact of globalization on higher education focus on the corporatization of higher education research and institutions, issues of managerial practice implementation, and the standards of quality assurance being placed on institutions around the world. These issues are intertwined in many ways, but they all come back to the fact that because we have not been looking at them critically, we are allowing the value of the cultural experiences of study abroad to fall into the background. The critique does not have to look at the global impact of these issues, but applying a critical lens to the changes in American higher education institutions themselves can assist in the broader impact of globalization on the international higher education systems. For example, it was found by Kim that Korean international students' experiences on American campuses affected their outlook on the Korean higher education offerings. Discussion of quality assessment as an element of managerial practices lack the appropriate answers to what constitutes quality. Peters discusses how the benchmarks of excellence have become meaningless because of the shift from corporate interests from cultural ones. What the various authors studied in this module highlight is that there needs to be a more critical view of the impact of globalization and internationalization, and the implementation of various higher education practices that ultimately are pushed upon other tertiary education systems in response to the demand for American students to study abroad in these nations, or for the nations themselves to become global competitors with American institutions. Because of this, the adoption of managerial approaches to higher education and the reluctant acceptance of the importance of excellence and quality in higher education have skewed the value of these measurement tools. The effects of this are seen in various levels, including the institutions as well as students, but ultimately reverberate into the host nation culture and their citizens. This is why it is important to look at these issues unsympathetically. The impact is greater than originally perceived and continues to grow.
The readings for Module 2 also touched on social stratification and representation. With social stratification, we learned that many have been excluded from participation in higher education and the pursuit of high-level research. Students and faculty alike are often bound by the limitations of their circumstances. For students, affordability frequently stifles progress for those without economic means, and for those who can pay for higher education, cross-border education may be their only option. Developing economies often lack the infrastructure, which could be accrediting bodies and quality assurance overseers, to implement and to manage new programs. So they look to industrialized nations to provide higher education, which sometimes comes in the form of branch campuses, or to establish partnerships in order to create a model. These partnerships are often at the advantage of the providers or centers. The curriculum is based on their system, philosophical outlook, pedagogy, and values. And due to the power dynamics, very little accommodations are made to include the host nation in crafting a higher education experience that honors and elevates their culture. The involvement of international governmental organizations like the World Bank and the World Trade Organization essentially strengthen these imbalances, assisting industrialized nations in expanding empire. Representation is another area of critique for the authors. The prevalence of English as the default language of instruction and communication clearly illustrates the influence of Western nations on international higher education. Perhaps the inclusion would be more welcomed if other languages were equally valued and promoted. If all things were truly based on market principles, higher education would insist on Chinese, particularly Mandarin, as one of the mandatory languages of communication, as it has more native speakers than any other language. Globalization poses real challenges to higher education. As we tackle issues at home, we must also look outward to examine how the landscape is changing for all of us. The authors have illuminated concerns of privatization, quality assurance, and the possibility of neo-colonialism. Moving forward, these issues should inform our practices and advocacy for equitable collaborative partnerships. Even though there are plenty of reasons for worry, the authors do point to opportunities for restructuring of the system. As institutions build trust, working collaboratively may be the most effective strategy against the forces of globalization. This crisis will not be mitigated through the struggles of developing economies, but through a renewed sense of justice and commitment to fairness by nations who are the center of the problem.